I was told once by a great teacher of mine, you gotta feel that pain, that's what you're built for. Suck it up and live it up. The pain hurts, the struggle is real. I know, yeah, I know. I push past it and continue my bills. I get it in, man, fuck how you feel. I know. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. I'm a grown man crying for help. Obstacles get destroyed and the enemies get dealt with. A double-headed axe, fire and lightning, they melt. Moving tactics and strategies, not on how I felt. In the fight for life, I'm earning my black belt. Master status apparatus, using my talents and breath. All the malice tries to knock me off my balance and step. In my sacred challenge, there's black magic descending to death. Ain't no retreat, no surrender, pressure enhances my set. Two machetes to the path, anything that stands against my intelligence. To the blood I give reference, cause it's my ancestors that made me who I am. This life sentence, ain't no getting scared. I got an iron heart and I'm fully armored with the consciousness and the ability to move forward. So get on the train or get ran over. Unity's on my mind and I'll be damned if you break my bone. The pain hurts, the struggle is real. I know, I know, I know. I push past it and continue my bills. Here it goes. I get it in, man, fuck how you feel. I know. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back, there ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. And that I'm working on, sunrise and dawn. Blood in my veins pump forward, heart drums a perfect song. So I push along, fair warning to the ones who want to stop my progress or knock me off my throne. In my path I don't stand alone. I got warriors, chiefs, elders, children, witches, maidens, and the chrome. Every step that I take shines remarkable like Rome. Every link that I make made the chain more strong. Real like that shit, shines bright like a star. Every yard that we take, God is thanking the all. We experience the fall, so time to rise real tall. Break the bondage, break free from what traps us all. Magnetic relationships that's reflected in the mirror. This it's real and we'll see much clearer. Beauty's only seen through the eyes of the steps. If you're trying to collapse the intent, you best be real careful. The pain hurts, the struggle is real. I know, I know, I know. I push past it and continue my bills. It goes, it goes. Man, fuck how you feel. I know. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. Gotta get past all those emotions, man. Stay on your strategy. Devise the tactics. This will take you down the iron wall. Yeah. Keep playing with me, you're gonna run right into that. Smash.
Smash. Smash, smash, smash. And the Rubians, how are you guys doing today? What's great going on? Good morning, good rising.
Greetings, 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 our new family. Greetings, Brother Anwar.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Peace, greetings, and salutations, beautiful people. It's a beautiful day. We're going to have a beautiful discussion. And guess what we're going to do today? We're going to get to know one another today, y'all. Oh, yeah, we're going to get to know one another today. We're going to bring some balance to this beautiful conversation, man. We got the Drop Squad in the building. We got Brother Anwar, Brother Charles. And we done brought out a retirement. Michelle in the building. In the building. Oh, yeah. Everybody all right?
All right, all right. So Zach, since you inspired me on one of the shows, man, I had written a reverence. So I'm going to go ahead and start that off first before we get into discussion. Is that cool?
Let's get it on, man.
All right. I give reverence to Olodumare from what is known and unknown. Image from Batala, Odudu, Olofin, Orumila. I give reverence to my Ori, our Ori, which has guided us to this time and space. I give reverence to the Ori, whose energetic guidelines help us to navigate the waters. I give reverence to the Yami, Yajay, all the great mothers who birth and nurture all of our experiences. I give reverence to the great fathers who lead our attentions by establishing protocols for expansion. I give reverence to Egun, our ancestors, which run in our blood, that gives us our past and our foundations that we build upon. I give reverence to my father, my Baba. I give reverence to my mother, my Yeye. I give reverence to the energy of Libra, the scale, and the attributes on how to balance it. I give reverence to the similar energies like Oshun, Ma'at, Astria, Het-Haru, Lakshmi, Mamiwada, Erizuli Zuli Freda. I give reverence to Ile Anu. I give reverence to the head Jegna and teacher, Chief Yuya. I say, oh.
I say. All right. Let's get it on, huh? We're going to give a shout out to those in the chat room, man. Let's get to know each other today, man. Sister Lola Parker, we see you in there. Sister Georgina calling from the Netherlands. How you living today? Yeah. We got Raw Honey Jaha. I feel like, do you say your name? I wonder if you say it like that. Jaha? Or you just keep it moving? Absolutely. Sister Marva, Brother Keith, I am Divine. Sister Nicole, I want to say, how you coming along with your pregnancy? If I'm not mistaken, and just jump on and we would keep that moving.
Nicole Mask.
Oh, yep. Okay. Now, see, here we go. Alicia, I want to say, is that how you say it? I don't know how you say it. You can correct me. Sister Diana and the other sister, but both Nicole's is in the building. So let's get it on, man. Huh? All right. So we're talking about balance. And, we had a lot of hot, fiery energy that we had brought last month. So we got Sister Michelle some cool water that she wanted to, before we move forward, she wanted to say a few things about what we built on last month, and then we'll go ahead and move forward.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted, I was telling you guys earlier, but I really loved that show. And it was a lot of great perspective given from Chief's information. The only thing that I felt was like, the woman's side, because clearly it's hard for you guys to speak on the woman's point of view. But
it's not going to happen.
Yes, it's hard. Yeah, exactly. So it's appropriate that we're not talking about balance, because just how in nature there has to be a balance, in our families there has to be a balance, and especially in relationships with men and women. And when it comes to mating and women, what I have seen and what I have experienced is that women can't choose their mate, because we don't know enough of the world to be able to be wise enough to choose a man correctly. But that has a lot of requisites, right? Like, you have to have confidence that your parents are also in balance, that they're going to choose correctly for you, that they have a plan, that they have a mission statement, that they have all these things in place. So what we see now is a dysfunction, the disbalance, because our parents don't have, well, at least my parents didn't. They don't have a mission statement. They don't have 700 generations in the future. They don't see that far. So it's really hard. But moving forward, we should have that in place for our children. And it sounds off-putting, right? That, my dad's going to pick my partner, or or especially to a teenage girl, because teenage girls are a different beast. We are in such a chaos, in such a dark world where we're figuring things out that even, telling someone, oh, you have to pick a partner for you is almost like, in the Western world, it's almost like an atrocity, it's a crime. Teenage, you have to have freedom and blah, blah, blah. But women should not, pick a mate just based on sex or based on how big his penis is or how big his car is, or all those external factors is what gets women into these unbalanced marriages, these unbalanced situations where a wise mother and a wise father could see a man and can say, well, he has a good spirit, he's strong, he has a mission, all these things that only a father can see. I wouldn't be able to see, right, even as a mother. But a father and a mother together in that balance and union can say, okay, this young man is great for my daughter because they know the daughter, etc. But in terms of like the balance, as she said, he mentioned in the first show this month that that there was an elephant in the room and sex was such a big topic, and I agreed with a lot of what you guys said last month. And I do think sex is important, but I don't think it's the all in all. I think a lot of it has to do with just relationships. How do you relate to your partner first? On all levels, whether it be spiritual, physical, mental. Do they feed you on those planes? Because, sex, you can get sex from anybody, right? Even as a man, if you pick the first wife, if she's like an Oba, that old wise woman, she'll create this great kingdom for you. Actually, Chief has a story, not Chief, but there's a pataki that Chief shared with us about Oba and Shango, if I'm not mistaken, and how that kingdom came about. And he picked Oba because of her wisdom and her fortune. She had a kingdom. And then after that was established, he had other consorts. So maybe, sex with a wise woman or Oba is not that important. And he can get that from somewhere else. He can, not that I'm saying that polygamy is just for having sex with another woman. No, it's more than that. But it's just a part of the relationship. It's not really the essence. There's just like, there has to be a balance even in the wives. Like everybody has a job to do. And everybody has a role to play. And, sex just is a part of it. Kind of like just eating every day, It's not really that big of a deal. But I will say, and I'm putting myself this included, there is a disease in this culture with pornography and sex. Like sex is overhyped. And you can see in the teenagers, they think that that's the most important thing. And it's not. And we overvalue because we're oversexed. Everywhere we see boobs and, penises and vaginas, even if it's in buildings or whatever. But, and it is a problem. Porn is everywhere, and it's something that we have to look at because we are being driven by sex, and it's not healthy. It's unbalancing us as a people, and sex is not everything. It's not. And we know this, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a couple of things that you said there, which I think, is perfectly in alignment with what we're talking about, which is like having this balance. Because whether you're talking about the roles that men play, the roles that women play, the role that a father plays in the family, the role a mother plays in the family, how much we put into the sexual dynamic of a relationship versus how much we put into the other expressions of love in a relationship. At the end of the day, what we're doing is seeking a balance. And it's interesting, and I think that's a very relevant point. And thinking about this month's shows leading up to this, one of the main things I took away was this notion of having to purge and get rid of things that are have you out of balance. And, to your point, Sister Michelle, the society that we live in definitely emphasizes an imbalance. A heavy perspective of focus on this, focus on this, focus on this, to the detriment of other things, right? So from a relationship standpoint, I might be just strictly focusing on, like sex over other expressions of love in a relationship. Definitely in society standpoint, it could be focused on money and monetary acquisition over quality time with people, or even quality time with yourself. And I think that one of the main things that we all have to do and have to continuously do is monitor our own personal scales to see if we're in balance. In some perspectives, evil is when an imbalance is happening. When things are in balance, when you are living a life where there is a winter time and there is a summertime, when you're living a life when there is a hot time and there is a cold time, then that's when you have balance. But in order for us to do that, we have to constantly be recalibrating. And that goes right into what we consciously put ourselves into and add to ourselves, and then what we unconsciously do. And much like, the way the seasons flow, like the seasons, if you just look outside, you see how nature is constantly going through that recalibration process. It'll be really hot. We probably got about another week of it being hot, depending on where you are, before it's going to start getting colder, because that's nature's way of recalibrating itself and setting up for, the next life-giving moment, which will come 6 months from now. And for ourselves, we have to also go through that process. We use sometimes the solstices as a way to do that, which is why we talk about the winter solstice and the summer solstice and the spring. It is in order for us to use that recalibration. And so, I think what you're saying is on point and definitely in alignment with what we were talking about, not only last month, but we've been talking about all these shows, because all these shows are building on one another. And now we're, to the surface, to the subject of balance. So, I think, that I agree with that. And then, Brother Zach, why you want to jump into?
Yeah, let me play Libra's advocate real quick. Sex is also an important part of your mating, your complementary actions. I don't necessarily think that it's unimportant. I think it's part of the balancing act inside of the mating process. Now, we did speak last week. We did speak on sex, but I think the underlining tone of what we were really talking about is differentiating the concept of just having sex or just have a nation building. And you and brother Charles accentuated that. It's like, what are we doing when we get into a mating perspective? Are we nation building? Are we building a community, a commerce system, family? Are we doing that, or are we just having sex? And my point from that was, let's be clear and let's be honest about what we are doing. If it's just a sexual thing, make sure the partners, the people that are involved inside of this, know that this is just this. And I think as men, we have to clearly identify what it is, because it's bad to lead someone down a road that they're thinking that they're going down. Maybe they're looking at being in a real relationship, and then you're out there with multiple women and not focused on the relationship aspect. But if we're in a place of nation building and community building, commerce building, family building, we need to be clear up front and be very precise on our actions and what roles everyone plays. And sex, just to be on the real side, is that it's going to be needed inside of a healthy, complementary system relationship. So, I agree. And I definitely agree with the fact that Sister Michelle stated that the father sees what needs to be inside of union. I definitely agree with that. And the part where she was speaking about what he has, cars, whatever packages he might bring, that's an important thing for the father also to analyze. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes like, yeah, well, he has to be a provider. So if he does have a car, that's a representation of him being able to produce something. You know what I'm saying? Or if he does have a large frame, yeah, that's another identifier that he can actually work or do something that's going to be productive inside of the union. So it's very important for the father to distinguish that. And I'm telling you, I don't know how I would be able to. Well, I know how I would be able to do it when I have a female, a little girl, daddy's little girl. Boy, I'm gonna be very protective of her. Probably more protective than I am with my boys. So I know how that should flow through. But I also think that women have a fluid nature. So in order for me as a father to guide my daughter in a certain way, I got to make sure I put hard and soft protocols so she can flow into that direction. So it's a little bit different. I'm just talking about like now, to be real, it's very difficult for women to take any commands from a man if they're not brought up in a situation where they're actually being led by a man. You know, and that's just with the generally speaking nowadays. You know, the women that are being raised now don't really have that aspect. And some do, and you can tell, like, within my peer group, probably a little bit younger also, that there's a accentuation on fathers making sure that they're there for their children. So, good points, though.
Yeah, can I add to that a little bit? I agree with what you said. Yes, the physical is important. And I'm not saying sex is not important. No, it's not. But I kind of relate. I see sex from the perspective of a married woman who I feel like I have a pretty balanced sexual life and a stable home, right? And then I also have the perspective of the opposite, which is when I was younger, correct? I didn't have a father in the house, typical Western upbringing. And from that mentality, I know that teenagers, young girls, they're sex-driven. And that's a problem because the family should direct that energy. Now, when a woman just goes and picks a man just for the physical aspect, that's when she goes down this ugly road because she doesn't really know what kind of energy she's putting inside of herself. And it's the same thing as eating. That's why I equate it almost to like a meal, because just the same way that you can have a good, healthy, nutritious, well-prepared, well-grown, homemade meal, you can also have Doritos and Cheetos and Frito-Lays, you know? And there's also a process of fasting. You can also choose, or if this is the only thing I have available to me right now, like Fritos and Doritos, then I'll just fast. I'll take a juice. I'll do something different. I'll choose to not partake. Now, that's not something that I did when I was a child. I ate all the Fritos and Doritos, metaphorically, the men version of Doritos and Fritos, right? And I saw where that led me. Nowhere. It led me down a road of mental craziness, because it really is, when a woman gets with a man that doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a focus, doesn't have a goal for himself, or even for her mainly, but even for himself, she goes crazy, because the whirlwind and the chaos is just going to always keep on going. The question is, right, does he love me? You know. So, Sister
Michelle, real quick. I know there's a question that you have here. Is it a question that you wanted to direct to Brother Anwar? Because I do just want to make sure Brother Zach gets a chance to respond as well.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to see that there was another perspective, like to the other side of the Libra balance, like he said. Like, I agree that there's a physical aspect, but there's also an important thing for the women in their mental unseen world that is necessary for them. For women, I feel like women, like she says, should be kept in the home and guarded, because the mental world that women have inside is chaotic. And when you just leave them out in the abyss and just let them pick and choose randomly, it's to what we're seeing right now in the world.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think all of it, we just really, again, ties into what this whole month was about. And honestly, for me, this enlightenment and transformation can be called, if it wanted to, balance. Because every show that has been done up until this point is bringing balance into a chaotic environment that we all live in. And once we start to dive in, you can just listen to the intro, which I don't know if it played today, but in the intro just said, enlightenment, transformation. Enlightenment is the masculine, and the transformation is the feminine. So you have the light and you have the dark. And one shouldn't aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but travel between the two to become self-actualized. And once you start to go between the two, once you start to venture out and say, I just don't want to sit here and be content and be comfortable in this situation, because ultimately all these situations that I am incurring, all of these situations that I run into, I have built all these obstacles are within energy and effort into how the cycle just keeps repeating itself, because now they got to turn that something into something that they can, some nutritional food that they can actually digest. But now that they're using their own mental prowess to get it turned into something that can actually be used. So we escape, even when we're talking about relationships, if we're talking about racism, white supremacy, all of this stuff, it starts with you first. You first is going to bring balance to all these situations that you have, because it's very easy to get into a situation and we say, you know what, it's easy to be a victim. And, I didn't know he just wanted sex, or she just wanted sex, or I didn't know that this was going on. And, being aloof and being not knowing what's going on, it just removes one from accountability, because it's easy for me not to be accountable for myself. So it's easy for me just to blame. That's what I'm going to do. But that's not bringing balance to it, because the common denominator is you. Y-O-U. The common denominator is you. And until you deal with you, you're not going to bring balance to any situation that you have. We can say, oh, yeah, we don't have, we can say even choosing a mate, and you should have your father with some people. Okay, you can have this. Your father is not around. That's not an excuse for you not to choose a proper mate. Because then what happens is, if you start to put the work in and the energy in for yourself, then you start to gain compassion for other people. When you start to put the energy and the work in and you put it in the studies of yourself, you gain empathy for other people. So what does that mean? You start to transfer your consciousness to other people and see what they see through their eyes. And it doesn't mean if they're right, and it doesn't mean if they're wrong. But you start to see that their path doesn't line up with the path that I'm going. You start to see that their path is a little further, either ahead of you or further behind you, when you start to put your own self-work in. But see, when you don't put that own self-work in, when you don't start to really dive in and crack open this information, you start to say, okay, and I'm going to hand it to somebody else, and I'm going to just give them the keys because they actually went through the fire, and you put all of your energy and effort into somebody else. Well, then now you're susceptible to whatever happens. You're susceptible. Now you're going to get what you deserve. And what you deserve is whatever is coming to you, because now you didn't do any work. If we sat into a room and the room caught on fire, and only one person put the work in to find where the exit was, and it caught on fire, you're susceptible to wherever that person leads you to, because that person knows where the exit is. And you should have took the time to actually go ahead and find out where that is before you sat down and just went about your day. But so many people just start looking, you know what, I'm only getting, I want to say, somebody said it was focus. You only start to focus on what pertains to you. You only focus on living in the future or living in the past, because the past is what something you can bend and mangle and twist. But you're afraid of living just in the moment and being present in the moment. But that means that you're going to have to put a little work into it, right? And you're going to have to be flexible, and you're going to have to be mobile when it comes into life, and it's going to help to bring balance into one's life. So then once you start to bring balance, and everything around you you'll start to see that sometimes when you're going into a direction, the greatest addition in one's life comes through subtraction. So when you start to put that work into yourself, you start to see sometimes the things that are around you that have been around you for so long that no longer can go with you to certain spaces that you're going. I can't bring you up into the highest peaks of the mountain, because I have to use mental telepathy to get you up here. So now you have to use your own brain power to get up here. I can't pull you up here. I can't drag you up here. There's only so far that I can take everybody until you got to start taking yourself. So once you start to see it, you look around and you say, hold on, man, are you not working? You're not working? You're not, okay. Well, then you got to stay, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to let you pull me down. Everybody, we have a purpose. You came down here for a purpose, and either you're going to help me to achieve that purpose and bring balance, or we're going to be off kilter, and we're going to suffer together. And I came down here, and I got to get done what I got to get done. And once we start to put that work in, that self-work in, then we can start to bring balance into our lives. And I think all of the rest of that stuff will just naturally clear up.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Zach. You know, you just broke down the whole concept on the first show that Chief was, well, just the whole concept of Libra is that, you know, what is needed for the journey and what has passed. It's that knowing of the things that you need right now in the present, and things that you're going to need for the future, and what you don't need, and what you don't need to attach yourself to, and leave that in the past. And you know, there's a lot of things inside of that you just said, that addition and subtraction part. You know, you talk about the scale being the heart. The heart has no emotions. There's no emotions. You feel me? There's no love or anything. The heart possesses these elements, those units, love, hate, happiness, sadness, to use to balance the vibration of yourself. So, you know, the whole point, what you're saying about subtraction and addition, is one of the grandest things that we do inside of our balancing act. And that goes like to even going down to what Sister Michelle was talking about with mating. There's a balancing act. You know, we can't deny that the fact that there's, as younger adults from 15 to 30, our sexual drives are enhanced. So, you know, there's a place in that time period of our life that needs to be, but also there has to be accountable at balance, where we're sitting and saying, okay, well, I don't want to consistently just be looking for sex, but I need some kind of not only just emotional content, but physical transformation to keep me moving forward. So there's a balancing act. There's that addition and subtraction. That's why, like, once again, the woman chooses the mate, no matter, even if the father chooses. At the end of the day, it's the woman that chooses the mate. So the woman's going to have that background training from the family, seeing how the mother and father reacted, work together, and how they balance out, so she can use that same knowledge that she gained from the family to not only just attracting the mate, but making sure that the mate fits into this guideline that the father has already created with the mother of that person. So there's a balancing act, and like she said too, it's very simple, but it's very complex. You know, it's a movement of addition and subtraction. You know, sometimes the scale is weighed with so much stuff down, and it's holding one side down, where the only way you can balance it is if you take something out and leave it alone. You purge something from the scale, and then it balances out. Maybe sometimes you need to, everything that's on one side of the scale is needed, but you need to add something else onto the other side of the scale so it can balance out. So it's going through that life experience with knowledge of self, learning who you are, learning what you need, learning who you are first before you start making a whole bunch of moves. You know what I'm saying? You want to make sure that you're finding your balance personally before you start getting into a situation, a dating situation, a relationship, a nation building situation where you throw that unbalanced energy off. Or maybe you do need that. See, this is simplicity and the complexity of it, is that maybe you do need that to balance. So it's a whole different aspect. There's a lot of different methods, and what Brother Zach was talking about were methods. You know, maybe we're making too much money and not enough time. You know what I'm saying? Or we'd have a lot of time and not enough money. There's so many aspects of life we can get into that requires that give and take, that push and pull, that addition and subtraction. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, like when you were saying the part about in the beginning when you're talking about what's necessary at a particular time, and it reminds me of something like Brother Zach was saying in terms of even like, you know, how the Anu spiritual training system is set up. The first part of it is about ministry to self, right? It's not saying go out and minister to someone else while trying to minister to yourself. Because similar to what you're saying, Brother Anwar, if you don't have a personal sense of balance, if you're imbalanced, all you can do is produce other imbalances around you, right? So the balance, so you have to start with yourself first, and starting with yourself is always a question of like, what is most necessary at this time, right? So spiritually, you know, we have a tendency sometimes to come into the Ifa tradition, and what we want is the initiation. And what we want is, you know, all the Orisha. We want all the Elekes. We want all that in the beginning. And sometimes that's not really what you need. You know, like I remember for me personally, one of the best things that, you know, Chief ever told me was, you know, before you try to focus on these 401 plus other Orisha, focus on your own Ori. Deal with that, because that's the starting point. And that's really going to help you to figure out and determine what you need when you need it. You know, and you know, this is an important thing. And even like I think it was the second week show when Chief talked a lot about the heart and the mind, you know, and realizing like the balance between those two. You know, sometimes we're very emotional in our responses to things. And in that emotionality, it's an imbalance, and it creates imbalanced decision making. And then sometimes even within our we can be too analytical, and being too analytical, it will also create an imbalance. So it's like, how do you kind of recalibrate things to make sure that you're using what is most appropriate at that time? You know, in a spiritual perspective, we know this and we learn this through our rituals, right? Because there are rituals that are necessary at a certain time. There's even a certain time that you should do that ritual. There's even a certain thing that you should say. So determining that necessity is important, but that necessity can only really be determined when you yourself are balanced. Otherwise, you're very likely to create an imbalance around you, not even consciously, but unconsciously. And, you know, the unconscious creations are the ones that are the most detrimental to us. So, yes, I think that was good stuff. Brother Zach, what you got?
You know what? And let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because I thought it was something that I heard you say of just being in the natural flow and not being too over analytical. And what just popped in my head is sometimes, you know, people say, there's a saying that goes, common sense is not that common, right? And it had me thinking, is being in this natural flow, is this something, or even being God?
Question. Go ahead, Brother Anwar.
I believe that's the training. I believe that's the training. I will give that balance and that respect to the soul, because the soul is guiding one's abilities to make the spirit make the mind and make the body work. But I also believe that external situations, external factors have a part to play in that situation. Like let's say you're raised in a Christian environment, and every Sunday you go to church, every Wednesday you go to Bible study. You're in that situation. Now the balance might be is that I'm not trying to solidify myself inside of a religious system as that person in that family, but that person in that family has to go through these cages or go through the cage of religion to learn certain balancing aspects, or being taught from their family and their lineage, from how they believe how balance is formed. And a lot of that is like stuff that's being given to the child, and not until the child gets completely free from that concept of how the house was run, until they figure out, like, this doesn't work for me, this does work for me. So I'm gonna eliminate this, and I'm gonna add this more. I'm putting more of this onto my scale, because I'll be able to grow from that part. So I do think that the soul is going to lead the change, or is going to lead what the human experience, the experience that human is having on this planet is going to need. But there's external factors that press on to that physical experience that we have to sit there and say, is this working for me or is it not? And if it's not working for me, why am I holding on to it? Why am I attached to it? Why is my ego placed in this part that's not helping me grow? So, but that goes into like the. Go ahead.
I have a question about common sense. I'm not. I don't know what is common sense? Is it like a masculine thing? Because we have geniuses in this world, and they're not in balance, right? So scientists and mathematicians, and they have a pretty off-balance spiritual life. So is common sense only related to the physical world, like traffic stops and how to drive, or like things like that, or what is it?
So
what's going on there, buddy? Hello.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Oh, peace, brother. So what's going on? I would say the common sense is basically what goes for me. Is basically what you kind of was talking about in the beginning. Is common sense would tell you not to have sex with somebody who's not working, not building towards anything, and not going anywhere, but you still bust it open and give it to him anyway. You don't agree with his culture. You don't agree with anything where he's leading a family or leading himself, but you still have sex with the guy anyway. That's common sense, is what I'm talking about. So,
So who gives that to? Like, who gives that to people? Your parents?
Let me. I just want to jump in real quick here on that, because I think it may serve as an answer to what Sister Michelle's question is. So what we're talking about here, from my perspective, is culture. The culture tells you what is common sense, because the common sense is this is what you should do. So the culture says, so if you're a part of a culture that says, when you want something, you go and take it, that becomes what your culture is. When you have a culture that says, if you want something, you negotiate with someone else based on what they want, then that's what you do. And then that becomes common sense. And the common sense part is, based on what my culture is telling me to do, this is how I should think and operate. And if I'm thinking and operating in alignment with that culture, then I am doing what is common or normal for my culture. The thing is that a lot of times we're not explicitly aware of what the culture is imposing or influencing on our decision making. And then we're also, some of us, in the process of trying to create or build or mimic another culture, which we're trying to learn while in the process of constantly being inundated with these ideas about what you should do and how you should behave. So if you look at, you know, how people dress, you know, the culture tells you this is how you should dress. This is how you should dress when it's daytime. This is how you should dress at nighttime. I had an interesting conversation with this person, and you know, they were talking about the idea of dress down Friday. So in America, there's a concept of dress down Friday. So usually that'll be the day when people who normally have to dress in a very business, casual, or even business perspective, on Friday they may dress down. They may wear jeans, unbuttoned shirt, you know, maybe the shirt's untucked in, maybe a polo shirt, etc. This lady who was from Ghana was telling me that in Ghana on Fridays is a dress up day. So everyone from Ghana that worked in this place came dressed up on Fridays because their culture said they do something different on a Friday. So in the same environment, you have some people who are dressed really down while other people are dressed really up. They're doing that because they're following in accordance with their culture, which dictates what is common for them, which influences how they commonsensically behave on a regular basis.
That goes into the concept of justice. That goes into the concept of justice, how Chief breaks it down where, greetings, Brian. But that concept of justice was like, you know, justice is only held by the person that is held by the person that holds the scale, meaning the culture that person comes from is justified to rape and pillage and destroy indigenous people, where it's justified because they're thinking that they're a superior race, so they can do whatever they want to do, and whatever happens to what they call the quote unquote inferior race is justified because they are able to do that. So the justice concept kind of goes from the culture, once again, that they're in, and how the lifestyles of the members of that community live by. Just exactly what you were saying about the difference between the dress down Fridays and dress up Fridays. So it's determined by the culture.
Well, I guess I remember Chief had did I forgot what the show was about, but Chief was saying that one of the greatest things we could do as far as when it comes to our thought process, and going back to what Brother Zach said, if you know something don't make no sense, why are you investing your spiritual energy into that? So I remember Chief had said, for men at least, we have to start thinking with our primal mind. If you know, in that, because I was thinking while y'all was saying that the culture dictates what your common sense is. So I was thinking that maybe your common sense is how you use your culture to behave, because at some point your culture dictates what you do, then that's considered behavior. So if your behavior isn't in line with the cultural values that you had and it benefits you, I think that would be common sense in different settings for different people of different cultures. How well do you use that in accordance with your behavior to accomplish what you need to accomplish? But I do remember Chief was saying that you thinking with your primal mind will eliminate a lot of the bad decisions.
And that being carved out, coming from one's communal perspective, because that's where one's character would be shaped. Right. Brother Byron, I heard you, did you want to jump in?
Peace, Anu family. Peace, everybody listening. Everyone's having a great day. Okay. Yeah, I really wanted to make a comment. I started to put some of it in the chat room before I got the number to call through. So this month's segment about Libra, for me, it spoke a lot about rebalancing and recentering. Now, I suppose for me as an Eshu priest, it's really important that I'm centered, because as we know, Eshu sits at the center of the crossroads, and that enables him to make the choices, or her to make the choices, the appropriate choices and decisions. Now, I suppose linked to the aspect of culture, I found myself in a space where I was on autopilot, and the energy that was directed me wasn't necessarily wholesome. I got into a routine where I was just doing things because I'd become accustomed to doing it, but not actually sitting down and analyzing whether it was the best approach for myself and for my family. So I've been using this time to reflect on and decide what is important for me, what is important for my family, realigning family behaviors to the family mission and family goals, and just kind of recentering myself, and through that recentering my family, to make sure that we're on the correct path and we're making the right decisions. So as Chief often says, these lessons often reflect what's going on in the wider Anu community. And for me, this month's segment have been very appropriate. So I'd like to say thanks to Chief for his offerings, because they haven't been wasted over here.
I'd like to get up on that sentiment as well. But
okay.
Thank you, Chief. I'll do it.
I just wanted to say on a final comment, I didn't catch all of the last conversation around justice, but I do recall Chief stating that he tries to use the terminology even-handedness, because justice is defined by the culture. The justice in any society is designed by the culture of that particular group. But even-handedness is more of a complete and unbiased statement, which is driven from, I would say, a spiritual perspective, because even-handedness brings in a lot of different aspects and energies and views, rather than justice, which is predominantly led by the culture of that particular situation or that particular district. I don't know if that came up in Anwar's delivery, because I only got the tail end of it, but I just really wanted to add.
I was going to get into it, but you struck it. You hit it right on point.
Okay, all right, no problems. Thank you.
Yeah, so even when you just heard Brother Byron speaking, and again, it just goes back to, like, everything that is in Anu speaks about balance. So once you start to even look at grasping the root, if you can grasp the root of it, then you can start to see divinity in things, or you can start to see where it's out of balance. You can start to see where you have been out of balance. So that therefore now you're able to, you can move and groove in any community and say, okay, I can hang over here. I can see this over here. And then I know when it's time to pull back and get out of here. Because for me, I want to learn from all aspects and all angles. That makes my angle even stronger. So if one gets out of self and say, hold up, man, let me look at it and see what they're doing. Let me look at it and see what they're doing. What is this community doing? What can I bring back to my community that we can start to implement over here as well, that can make us strive to become more balanced, and that's even better for us. So I even in the sense of, I look at a story, I know I come just, I want to say, Brother Anwar brought this up when he said go to church on Sunday, Bible studies on Wednesday. I come from a Christian background. I come from a Christian family. We was YPD, Young People's Division, singing and all. And the funny thing is, after now that I've been in studying underneath Chief, I can go back and look at some of these stories and say, you know what? Some of these stories, you can use some, like the story of Samson. And it was a story where he cut his hair off, and he was supposedly lost all of his strength. Right. And the interesting thing about that, I thought that was, he picked it. Now I go back and I look at it and I say, hold on. He was with a woman and she gave him up. He picked wrong, which he shouldn't have did. They cut his eyes out, which he was leaning too much on what he was seeing. And then once he called on his inner strength, because really his strength wasn't in his hair, he called on himself to get done what he needed to get done. And he tore these pillars down, and which tore the whole group down, which then started making me think, you know what? if you really start to break some of these stories down, then you can start to see even when people, you can't take some of this religiosity to your own thing. You have to look at it and break it down for what it is. So how many people actually sit down at their shrine and lean on their pot? Or I'm going to lean on all of these external factors that go on and say, I'm putting my strength into this. I'm putting my strength into my locks. I'm putting my strength into this, and those things are not always going to be around. Those things are not always going to be at hand for you to actually grab. So it's not what that thing is. You start to see, even when you take it to the class, it's what that thing represents. And once you figure out what that thing represents, you put that thing inside. And when you put that thing inside of you, you start to move. You walk different. You talk different. You hang around different people. And if that sometimes means that people come around, you say, hey, man, you don't hang around with us like you used to. So, well, so be it. There's another place and there's another level that one starts to reach. And either you're going to get up here and you're going to start moving with us, or you're going to get left behind. But it's a beautiful thing when you start to put in that work and that effort, that now all of a sudden you just don't say, I got into this, and now instead of you calling on God, every time you sit down and I'm going to call on my riches, or I'm going to call on this, or I'm going to take it to my pot. You looking at a pot, or so you just talking to the floor, or you talking to the sky. All right. And he said it once, he said it 1,000 times. Do not get down and ask, quote unquote, or say anything that you are not going to do yourself. All of these things, all of these reaches, they exist within you first. And if you can start to tap into that first, then all of a sudden you'll start to see the things that make a connection to the external. And then once you make that connection, then it's going to start to bring balance, and you start to move. And I think that goes back to that olofin aspect too, is what Brother Brian was kind of touching on as well. Because then it's just the natural law that you start to move into. Man's law is going to change on a day in and day out basis to fit whoever made that law. But once you start to get into natural law, once you start to move and groove in that aspect, then all of a sudden certain things that started to weigh you down no longer weigh you down no more. And you can start to mature and fly into different zones that maybe you never was before. And then things just start to seem so minute. They don't seem so big. Your issues don't seem that you got to tackle the world no more, because you're able to go up to a higher aspect and look down and say, man, hold up. It doesn't make that. It's like being in a pool. And I want to say, to use this as one. And if you're in a pool, like at the YMCA, we used to go and we used a shorty, and there was 1,000 people in there, and there's all this commotion and chaos and all of this ripping and running and birthdays going on over here and all of this stuff going on. But then if you just go up underneath that water, and all of a sudden it just and it gets very quiet, and it gets very serene, and it's almost like you can gather your thoughts, and you can actually, I can just chill for a second. Or same thing if you climb to the top of a mountain, and you get different perspectives over all the chaos and commotion that might be going on in one's life, and you can start to put things in perspective, and you bring things into balance. But it's not going to come until you do that self-work. If you don't put that work in for yourself, then you're going to constantly be ripping and running around like they say with the chicken with your head cut off, wondering why things are not falling into place, wondering why why is it like this? Why is it like that? Or if you just, and then I see even in the conscious community, it's like we're going to bang on the white name. So now you're going to blame a ghost for that you don't even know who you fighting. You're just going to be swinging at the air. But that's all you're going to do is just keep running and running until you run yourself raggedy and you're not getting anywhere. And I just watched that movie, The Panther, the other day. And it's like, if one can start to become a scholarly warrior, and you can start to actually look and see how you got into this spot, see what was done to try to get out of this spot, you can start to make better decisions on not only how to get yourself out of this, but how to get your people out of this as well. And you can identify who your people are in that process, because all of that is going to start to manifest itself when you start to put that work in and bring balance into this situation when you came down.
There's an excerpt from the 14 Keys in regards to justice and even-handedness, and I want to put it out on the record. In society bent on arresting the development and growth of natural incarnate beings, a new debauched sense of justice becomes the operating prerequisite. Even-handedness is a means of directing individuals towards what would relatively be considered high morality. I had put that aside for that concept, And the reason why I put that to the side is because when we speak on justice and kind of going a little further into what Brother Byron was talking about, even-handedness, is that our even-handedness would be like the concept with Chief with the tree. He knew that he killed the tree and he had to do other steps to make it die good. You know, so the even-handedness, the justice that came about was that he went through some turmoils. But then in order to correct that, he had to go and continue to do what he initially did and let it die peacefully. So that even-handedness is more morally correct per the individual than what justice would be. So I just wanted to add that to the record.
And now let me ask you this, Brother Onwar, because you just, again, that's what we kind of was just building on. So when you say morally correct is that going to come from one's culture, or is that going to come from naturally what is born inside of somebody?
Morally correct would come from one's culture. And I think he went into that a little bit later on. Maybe if I read a little bit more of the insert. But in my eyes, I see that morality comes into being inside of a community and knowing that when Friday comes, I get dressed up. You know what I'm saying? Now, what goes with the soul, my soul is telling me Friday I shouldn't be dressed up, or I'm not seeing the station of me being dressed up on Fridays, then I wouldn't get dressed up on Fridays as an individual. But with the cultural standpoint, when everybody's getting dressed up on Fridays, do you do it just to fit in, or do you do it, and this is probably the question I would ask, is would you do it just to fit in, or would you do it because you felt like this is not for me? My answer to that would be I wouldn't do it if it didn't resonate with me. So.
I think Brother Zach, I just think that's that question. You know, the morality, I would think matches up with the sense and the circumstance. So, you know, what's considered moral on a battlefield is different than what will be considered moral in a courthouse, or is different than what may be considered moral in a school classroom. So, you know, I think part of this is you know, when we're talking about balance, when we're talking about even-handedness, actually, is about figuring out what matches up with the set and the situation and the circumstance. Because there are some responses that may be perfectly moral or perfectly legitimate in one situation, which are not going to be the appropriate situation in the appropriate response in another situation. It's like doing what's good and what's right.
Okay. So then let me ask you this. When we're talking about, if one then starts to talk about racism, white supremacy, then it just depends on what side of the fence one is on to say then what is good, what is right. Neither one of them then really is wrong.
I mean, I think it depends on your circumstance. I mean, you know, like when you're talking about that term racism, white supremacy, so, you know, a lot of that goes back to the work that's been done by, you know, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. And one of the things that she said is that it makes perfect sense if you are white supremacist. It doesn't. It's not an incorrect. It's not an incorrect. The system that's built around that and actions that come across from that are not wrong or bad if you are interested in the maintenance and the preservation of your genetic and racial group, which is from her perspective the driving force behind the creation of racism and white supremacy. So if you're interested in the maintenance and the furtherance of your people, then that becomes the method by which you understand you do that. If you're the person that's being affected by that, then you are in the opposition to that, based on it having a negative impact on the maintenance and furtherance of your people. Now, interestingly enough, when it's considered the opposite of racism, white supremacy, is called justice, right? Now, I know we can get into some different kind of ideas about what justice is, but my interpretation of that is that the justice part is creating that balance. It is understanding that this thing is going to exist. That part of it is going to be there. And then the other response is for the other people to also work to defend and further and protect themselves. And if they are not able to do that, then you get racism, white supremacy, which is the imbalance and then therefore the absence of justice.
But see, just to add on to that, and that kind of goes back to what I just read, is that who's developing the system of justice? Is it coming from the racist white supremacy concept, or is it coming from the first people that are being oppressed? So now, if the people that's oppressed would look at the justice being for them to be taken out of power and stripped of their power, the white supremacists might be saying the justice is, we're gonna get a slap on the hand for the actions that we did. You know what I'm saying? We might lose a little bit of money just to look good inside of a large, vaster community of multiple communities. So, who's developing the justice? The even-handedness in that situation would be that those individuals that were participating in white supremacy lose what they have and get stripped of their power, and the ones that weren't participating but were living under that system, they get balanced out into the two communities and come into a agreement of where our communities can work together and find that balance. And that actually goes into what Chief was talking about, a Libra in balance. It's finding commonalities to work together. Even though you might not like the white supremacists, you can't stand the concepts that they put out. But if you can find a commonality to work together where their race can be maintained and our race can be maintained and our communities can be can live amongst each other, so we both be able to enjoy the planet and celebrate the planet like how we're supposed to, and be and express gratitude towards the planet and the things that we have in our lives, where we can work together to get in that and find that commonality to do that, then that would be even-handedness. But once again, the question always goes into who is creating the system of justice. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that system of justice is going to come from that, again, what we've already established in is that cultural perspective. And if that system of justice is coming from that cultural perspective, then one can sit there and keep trying to change the person of view, or you can start to bring balance to your own situation. Now, what I start to see is so many, and he touched on this again in the first show, is it's like what do you say, baby food. You can't give meat to a baby, and you give them milk. But at some point in time, even when we look at that, how much milk does one keep drinking? Come on, like and I only brought that up just for the sense of, it's like you can't keep asking somebody to do for you when you have to do it for yourself. And even when we talk about justice, and I think that's a word that even starts to hold one back a little bit, because again, just what we said is that comes from your cultural perspective. So when somebody says that's just, we work together, well, yeah, I gave you a job. So what are you angry about? You working, ain't you? We working together. I own this. Now, but you're gonna bring your issues over here that you have where you want social justice and all of that, well, you're gonna have to get that yourself. And again, that came in the movie that he brought up, which I just watched the other day, was Panther. And in that, you got to start to build. You're going to have to start to police your own community. You got to start to do all of these things for self. And if you don't, you got to understand, too, what you're up against. And it's no different than playing like a chess game. You start to see you got to play offense and you got to play defense. And all of it goes in your mind of, okay, now I got to start thinking 2, 3, 4 moves ahead. Because then once I start to do that, I'm going to see this move and I see that move. And even if they make a solid move against you, you're able to tip your hat and say, you know what, that was a good move. Now watch what I'm about to do. But if you get so much caught up into worrying about what this justice thing is and saying that, hold up, this is not just, well, then now you're always going to be susceptible to what somebody else is doing. And it's not going to bring balance.
I was thinking, but I almost said that, a culture established the justice. and based off, what our sojourn has been in America and what our sojourn has been in Africa and abroad, it seems to me like the one who sets the justice system is who's ever in control at the time. You can't have a justice system for an oppressed people if they're oppressed. Like how are they gonna enforce that system of justice? So if you have a particular culture that you subscribe to, born to, raised in, indoctrinated to, whatever, that culture has a particular group of customs that makes that culture unique from other cultures. So if it's customary for me to completely kill my enemy, then that morally it would be incorrect if I didn't do that. So your culture has to be pronounced by distinct customs that you follow and traditions that you just do not break. So whoever's culture is in control or governs the majority of the people who are with that same mindset of, wanting justice, is whoever set the president for it. So I guess you would start getting to the alpha territory. The alphas are the ones who control the area. If I got what you need, and then the only way you can get what you need is to come through me, then I'm gonna create a justice system that's gonna protect me from you, because I don't want you to just come up and try to take what you want from me. Although I'm the alpha in the sense of I control it, but I don't want to have to fight you. I'm not gonna fight you to stay in that position, because it's just what it is. So I was thinking whatever country, and I was thinking that from Brother Zach gave the analogy of the pool. When you're in the pool, in a crowded pool, and everybody's talking loud, you hear all the chatter, and as soon as you stick your head under the water, it's quiet. But if I remember correctly, sound travels through solids and liquids than it does through the air. So I was thinking, if you dive into and completely control your emotions and aware of what's going on with you emotionally, and know that there's two different realms to it, you can hear the real sound, the faint sound. The messages get to you quicker. I was thinking when you said dive in the pool, and in the pool, I was thinking, well, above the pool you have air, and in the water you completely submerged in water. You're out of the element of air, but you need air to sustain yourself. So you have to balance for your tranquility, because you can't live in both if you want to have complete balance. If you have those two elements at play. I was wanting to see what y'all thought about that, because that's what I was thinking the whole time. Like, it's all making sense now. When you look at it metaphorically, then the concepts aren't as obscure. So what is the justice system? Who comes up with that? What element does that justice system represent? And once you start looking at things and elements and what they represent, I think brother Charger said that you're looking at the symbolic meaning of things, and you're not looking at the little mundane details. Let's just get the subconscious picture, understand what element is coming from, see if it's in alignment with what you're trying to do, and then if it's not, balance it out. And I think that's the concept of Libra from what I've learned from y'all.
Chief just said something in regards to that in the chat. He said balance is always an effect, and he's talking to Sister Diana Williams. We have to be mature enough to see all people do foolish acts. We can't just pout and say that's not right. We have to learn the way of the world. Once you have learned that, we decide what we want to be in the world. If you want to be food for predators, they will eat you with the pout still on your face. Meaning, now, from what I take out of that is that once we have determined what we want out of the world and what our community, what our family, what our nation wants out of the world, we can go about connecting that with the other communities in the world and the other natural processes, nature. Just to kind of throw off for examples, I just seen a documentary of a brother that made electricity for his village out of hydroelectric electricity for his village. And what he did, he went to school for a short time, but from lack of money, he couldn't finish the course. But he went back to his village and started testing and working things to bring electricity into his village. And this is without the societal norm to go get a degree and then find out he did this on his own to balance out what he was trying to do in his culture. And it just goes into knowing that, okay, this is the place I can play in the world, and this is how I can put my part into this worldly event, how the world runs, how the world's functioning. You know, if I need to find ways to defeat an oppressor, my culture and my concept of that would be analyzing it from the scientific view. Like he said, it's not good to start with the abstract. We can't just sit here and talk about what we need to go bang on the system, take control of the system. Let's take the scientific approach and say, for the system, what functionality is working in the system? Do we need nuclear plant workers? Do we need doctors? Do we need lawyers? Do we need drivers and all types of stuff? What is the system? So we analyze that scientifically, and then we put the emotional concepts and the abstract concepts in our philosophy once we have seen the needs of society. So, you know, it's important. It's a good point Chief just made.
Yeah, and you know, oh, go ahead, sister.
I'm so sorry. I was gonna interject. You know, I'd like to bring. I want to be the opposite side of it, devil's advocate, because, you know, a lot of my journey, especially in sharing with non family, is my own personal struggles. And as a student, everyone knows, or everybody should know, I've been here years in the game, and I still haven't finished phase 1. Now, I'm not going to say a bunch of excuses for myself because, you know, that's the imbalance. I feel like when I start feeling bad that I'm not doing all the work that I should be doing, is because I'm comparing myself to Chief. Like, oh, I want to be like Chief. And I can't because I haven't gone down his path. And I feel like what has helped me a lot with this past month with Chief, with the Libra and the balance season, is to come to terms with my own inner workings of balancing myself out. Of when I make a mistake, correct it. When I don't do this, I do the opposite. You know, there's a balance between being and doing. And I sometimes don't feel like that necessarily looks like all of these concepts that I feel like they're so far down the road for me. And when I start hearing about culture and this is what we should be doing, I feel just so bogged down because it's like, oh man, I'm still in the system. I'm still in America. I'm still eating processed foods. I'm still living in a toxic plastic house. I'm still not where, you know, and that limit, all those things, I'm just like, I'm not there yet. Kind of like, you know, makes you just want to sit down and quit at the first mistake. You know, like kind of like throw yourself hands up in the air and be like, you know, I haven't done a new phase 1 in 2 years. I'm not going to do it. And you just give up. But it's like, there has to be like every student, and I know that every student has a struggle. I know every student is struggling, especially with phase 1. I know there's students that finished it, but those are, you know, those are amazing people. But and I think that's what phase 1 is about. You know, going through those struggles. And we're not I feel like we don't talk about that enough. Or, you know, or at least be real about our own personal, you know, admitting to like, you know, I'm having trouble. I'm not doing this, you know, the way I should be doing. And it's not because I'm looking for help or anything like that, but it's just so that like we all know, we're all in this culture. We all have these struggles. We're all doing it. Well, we can do it. We can move past because, you know, when I know that when people start hearing about all these ideals and all these other side of the balance stuff, that people will just start thinking that this is an impossible thing for them because of the way their life is set up. you know, or because of the circumstances in their life, which is also a reflection of their inner workings, you know. And I think the inner workings is what's the hardest part. And of course, you know, all these things.
There's some advice that Brother Zach has shared with me just this past week is being grateful, gratitude.
Yeah.
And also going into like grasping the root of divine power that Chief spoke on. If your life purpose was already solved, you wouldn't be here. You'd be done. The journey is the magic ritual that we speak of. The journey, the changing of your aspect. You know, that's the balancing act of the whole thing. Is that it's not the end goal, because if you hit the end goal, there's nowhere to go. It's the journey to that end goal. You know, and that goes out to suit. Like for me, you know, even with take the examples for the classes, like I know when it's time for me to do that next module. I feel I can use my emotional content to determine when I'm working on the next module. So those balancing acts always work as you work through your life purpose. And honestly, I'm in knowing that everything has to come in with time. You can't rush things. If you rush things, you end up getting yourself into problems. So don't put yourself in a place where it's like you don't feel like you being a good student, quote unquote. You're being a student. You're just growing. You're growing as time goes. And everything. My whole experience with enlightenment, transformation, and illumination has always been in time. It's always been on time. It's been in the present. It's been in the present situation. Shows that she's done in the past has not only for me, but I'm pretty sure I can speak for a lot of people that listen, that it's been right there when the situation is right in front of us, that Chief comes out and says, so in this. And then you're like, wow, he's talking to me once again. Like he said on the shows, he's talking to me. It's that when you get inside of a community that's working as one, everybody's doing their individual things, but we're working as one. That tune, that frequency, that connection, that commonality between us comes out to the forefront. That light comes out to the forefront, and it shows us like, okay, we are on the mission. We're on the path. We're on our life purpose. And I personally look at it as acknowledgments that I am. You know what I'm saying? And I'll use those words that I am on my life purpose. I am developing my life purpose.
Sister Michelle, I just want to say first, I really appreciate the the authenticity you brought to everything that you said. And, you know, honestly, you know, Brother Anwar has said a lot of what I was going to say, which is what's up. When you said there were two things that you said that I just want to touch on. One is when you said that you feel like you're never going to get there. You know, like my question is always like, where is there? Like, what is there? There isn't an end to this process. There's not a point where you're like, okay, I got all this spiritual development thing on. I'm perfect now. Like that's not going to happen. You know, this experience of learning it's a true lifelong process, and it's a constantly moving target. So there isn't going to be a end to it. You know, it's like if you study, like, you know, like Brother Byron studying like as an Eshu priest, you can spend your whole life studying just Eshu and never touch another Orisha, because it's thousands of years of information behind that, and you have maybe at best 82 in this life. So it's not about you getting there or completing something. Even with Anu Spiritual Training Phase 1, you can complete it, but it doesn't end when you complete it, because you're still learning more from it. You're still revisiting it. You're still going to revisit concepts and parts of it. So there isn't really an end. It's just, you know, you may complete that section.
So I would say like one of the things that can take some of that pressure off is this feeling that there is a there or there's an end goal, and realizing, similar to what Brother Anwar was saying, this is a process. This is a process of development and growth and a journey that doesn't have a destination. And like Chief has been saying on the last couple of shows, sometimes you gotta just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride, because you're not going to get to the end. So enjoy the ride while you're in it. The other thing that you mentioned about like that comparison between us as students and Chief as the Jegna, there's a reason why there's the Jegna. Not everybody is meant to be the Jegna. Not everybody. There's people on the phone that are listening to this call right now who are never going to finish phase 1. That's where it is. That doesn't necessarily make them a bad person or means that something is wrong with them. They will get what they need at this time. And if they don't get what they need, they'll revisit that and it'll come back up again until they learn the lesson, or they won't. But it's a process that you go through. And where Chief is there because that's where his process has taken him to. And there's other processes and other roles for the rest of us to play, which is similar to what Brother Anwar was saying. Even in the Orisha spiritual community, it's not just Obatala or just Shango or just Eshu. There's 400 plus Orisha because there's a necessary role for all of those to play in the spiritual community, just like there's a necessary role for all of us to play in this physical reality and community. Our role and our responsibility is to play that job, not to be something else. It's like with children, I'm sure like Brother Zach, you'll notice too, like no boy when they're like 4 years old sets up and says, I want to be an offensive lineman when I grow up. No one says that. Everybody wants to be a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver because those are the glamour positions. That's what you see on television all the time. But as time goes on, that little boy grows up and ends up being 6'8", 330 pounds, and he's not going to be a quarterback, and he's not going to be a wide receiver, and he's not going to be a running back, but he may actually end up being an offensive lineman. And role in playing that offensive lineman is critical to that team being successful. So our role, I think I'll say is that our process sometimes is to determine what our role in the community is. Not all of it is to be chief. Not all of it is to be the warrior. Not all of it is to be the priest. But we'll find what that role is if we're willing to embrace that journey and learn those steps that are necessary for us in that path, not necessary for what someone else needs.
That was solid, man. And I just wanted to... Go ahead, brother.
I was thinking when she was saying how she felt that she had to compare herself to Chief and she should be where Chief is at and all of that stuff. I started thinking about nature, how you don't see fish arguing with cats. The fish was born and is given a specific set of challenges that comes along with living in water. A cat has manifested an environment that is conducive for a cat to be in. So a fish would not tell a cat to come down here and let's swap and see how we can survive in each other's environment, because there are specific things that prohibit that from happening. So when it comes to what I've learned to deal with when dealing with other students and thinking I should be farther along than what I am, is I have to ask myself, how well are you mastering your environment? Like the fish has to master being the fish. There's no reason for you to master being on land or something outside of your territory. So everything that was given, all the challenges, all the problems, all the potential come ups and all of that stuff, those parameters was given to you by your Ori that you picked and the environment that you have manifested for yourself. So now that you're in this environment now, how do you maneuver in it and eventually out of it if you choose to? So everything is specific in the sense that we have manifested a specific group of circumstances that we, through our process of our Ori and what we have to do to accomplish our purpose, we have to master that. We can't worry about somebody else's territory because we're not built for that. We don't have to do that. Just like Brother Zach said, not everybody gonna be a Jegna. Not everyone has to do that. That is a task. Not everybody's gonna be a priest. Not everybody's gonna be this. Some are, some won't. But based off your purpose, so you will manifest the circumstances that you need to get through that, which is problems included. So everything that comes to you, you have all the tools at your disposal to fix it. But you can't win if you're trying to do that in somebody else's environment because you don't have the tools for what they need for their environment. like a cat will never need gills. He doesn't need that, so he doesn't have it. So that's how I look at that when I started really breaking it down and looking at who doing what and how it pertains to me and what I'm trying to do. That's how I broke it down.
And, you know,
I agree. Thank you so much. I definitely agree. Thank you so much for really breaking that down for me, guys, brothers. I do want to add that, yes, I do have, my mentality is very Western system educated. Like, I see levels and like, okay, that's where I need to go. And I'm not going to say I want to be chief. No, that's not it. But Chief has said that he has superiors on top of him, which blows my mind that he looks up to. So I looked up to Chief, and I know I can't get to that level. The thing is that the pressure of looking towards someone like Chief, it's all like, oh man, I don't know if I can make this, you know. And that's that you know, own inner workings that I have to deal with. It's my own inner balancing that I have to achieve, so I can come into harmony with my exterior. You know, these are the things. This is exactly the balancing that I'm not only experiencing in this phone call, but also throughout the whole month. And it's hard work, you know. And I just wanted to touch on it because, you know, I know I have focused a lot on the class and achieving the units and all that stuff, but I have neglected a lot of my own inner stuff, like my dreams. I've neglected a lot of my dreams, and those are so important. My own mental stuff, and I think that's so necessary because we live in this culture where we're programmed to not do that, to look at the exterior, look at the units. Oh, I finished unit 1, now I gotta do unit 2. Oh, who's my teacher? Oh, I kind of have to strive to be like him, and then I have to strive to be like his boss, and then get his job. And that mentality is what needs to be destroyed. Because yes, I'm living my own process. I have my own journey. I have my own. Now I don't know if I have a woman that I look up to that I can say, oh, she's the one, or that's kind of like what I want to be. I don't know if I have that yet, but I know that I'm striving to be something that I dream of. And it's hard for me. And I just wanted to bring it out there because I know there's a lot of students that don't talk and don't participate and are listening that, you know, but can hear us, and we can start talking about all these, you know, culture and justice, and just feel so bogged down. And I think there has to be that balance, that you have to work in the day, in the now moments, and then look ahead. But then it's just the Libra thing, right? It's so hard because it's that balance is so subtle, and it's so hard to maintain because you have to be in the now, look in the future, maintain the chakras, you know, look at what you're eating on the outside, look at your dreams, look at what you're manifesting, and it's always being that middle point. And that middle point is hard. Maintaining that middle point to me as a Westerner is hard. I know if I go somewhere else, they've always in Zen. Their Zen mode is always on point. And that's awesome, you know, but, you know, that's not the reality that I see. You know, so that's just all I wanted to mention, because I just, as a mom, compassionate, you know, I'm just trying to reach out there that, like, you know, this is hard. These concepts are hard. They're easy and they're hard at the same time, which is like the middle point of the Libra, right?
You know what?
Everybody want to get in on that.
Go ahead. Just say this real quick.
I was thinking,
let me just say this real quick. I would just say this. You know, what you're saying is the reason why we have a community. And to me, when I look at a chief, and I remember when I first came in this, and he was like, his goal is to become obsolete. And I remember, like, man, there's no way he's coming obsolete because he's so far out there. Like, I'm not catching him. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to put the work in. And then once you start to gain that, you come into a community, then you can start to understand then now what is your role in that community. Because I think what starts to become overwhelming for a lot of people is now you have the feeling in this that you got to be do everything for all people. You got to be this one thing, and you don't. You know, like the hand and the foot do totally different things, but they're still working in unison for a common goal, right? And it goes back to, again, what Brother Charles kind of was speaking on, is water is going to seek its own level. So it doesn't it's all needed. It's all, nobody's wrong in their point of view and what they bring to the table. It's all going to be needed, and it all can be used. It's just a matter of now finding out your role. And sometimes what I see too is some people may not like their role. And they may be looking on the other side of the fence saying, hold on, what's going on over there? I want to do that job. I don't want this job over here. Instead of mastering your job and seeing how that job is connected to any and all things. And then it goes back to, again, even how we look at success. You know, success is either you're following a paradigm that somebody gave to you, or you're following what you're putting in place. Success is is how you see it and how you define it, right? And you're going to follow a successor, and sometimes you don't have a successor to follow. You don't have that model to follow, and it becomes hard because that blueprint is not in front of you that you can say, this is how this person did it, or this is how that person did it, so this is what I can do. And that's kind of what we're talking about, even bringing in balance. You might have to be that model that starts to now say, this is how it should be done, and then somebody will feed off of yours. So you might have to now put in a little work to see who might be somebody you can look at. Where do you, and it might come out of your cultural alignment. It might come out of somebody else's to say, okay, this person did this to help succeed and move their group in order to get done what they needed to get done. So then you'll start to look at that and say, okay, how can I progress, and how can we move into a proper space that needs to get done to bring balance into the situation. And then once we start to do that, and once we start to see that we don't have to do everything, I can go to Brother Charles when I have a question. I'll go to Brother Alwyn, or even in Osiris Life when I'm talking to Chief. You can listen to these shows, and he's just mixing up the baby food and the milk per se, and he's mixing them both together. But then he'll let you bite off a chunk of that meat when you get in Osiris Life. Okay, boom. Let's start taking this thing to another level. But just understand, you don't have to do everything by yourself. You're not in this alone. And once you start to see we can lean on communities, and you start to say, hold on, man, if I take my shirt off, you start to notice, oh, you got a belly button. Oh, well, I got a belly button. Oh, you got one of those too? Oh, you got one of those too. Oh, man, this whole time I was trying to cover up and hide the very same thing that all of us got. So then once we start to say, oh, well, then I'm not in this alone, and my situation is not that different than everybody else's situation, let's come together as a collective group to figure this out. And then we can start to move and groove in the proper direction that we need to start moving it. But it's not until then that it's going to still feel like the weight of the world is on our shoulders, and we got to handle all of this by ourselves. And that is so far from the case.
I wanted to just give a real quick intermission, appreciation. The topic we're talking about is real serious. It's a serious topic. But even inside like the chat right now, we're having a good time. We're laughing. We're enjoying our community. And that's another balancing part of it. And this goes back to what you told me the other day, Brother Zach. Celebrate it. Celebrate every aspect of life. If you don't wake up celebrating that you're here and you're ready to go, fired up, ready to go. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to use that chant because my mother does that to me and I like it. You know what I'm saying? So we're appreciating the life in the journey, the experiences that we're going to have. We're appreciating that. You know, that not only Zach mentioned that to me this week, Nancy also mentioned that I was working with a client, and the client was coming in. I was going to make a beat. I was going to make some money. And I was I wasn't appreciating the fact that I had a client coming in to pay me money for something I love. And you know what I'm saying? So when you have people telling you signs like appreciate, celebrate, you need that for your balancing part also, because there's a seriousness that goes inside of our life mission. You know, we were constantly trying to focus and reevaluate ourselves. enlighten ourselves, transform ourselves, do it again, have the cycle continue, completely going. So that celebration aspect of this whole process, of everything, not only just dealing with the Libra, but everything in your life purpose, your life experience, you have to celebrate it. So, you know, I just want to say give thanks to those messages, and give thanks to that information, because that's very important. One of the most important things that we need to recognize is that laugh, and that's how Oshun falls into this. You know, the giggler.
Yeah. I
just want to wait a minute, DJ. I want to interject while we're still celebrating. I want to wish you a happy born day. I know your birthday was yesterday, so I just wanted to shout you out, Mr. Libra.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Appreciate the love. When you was talking about, you know, I was thinking about process, because all of this is steps to everything. And when we used to play like little league football, like Pop Warner, 8th grade, they used to coach used to say, "Don't worry about the tadpole, you'll get it." And I was like, why does he keep calling me a tadpole? But I thought about it, what a tadpole does. Tadpoles never stress about turning into frogs. Like, you go through one stage where you in an egg, then you in a lake, a little bubble, then you grow a tail where you can move, then you grow legs where you can help control your tail, then you grow front arms so you can control your back legs, and then finally you lose your tail, and that's where you can come on land. So you have to look. When you were saying about, you know, trying to get to step points and different points, that's like a tadpole thinking he can jump around with a frog. Like, it's gonna happen. We're gonna reach our end point. But how well do you survive while you're in that tadpole phase? Because tadpoles don't hang around grown frogs. Tadpoles, because grown frogs will eat tadpoles. So the only thing a tadpole can do is learn from frogs and from tadpoles that are further along the path to him. Because that tadpole gonna be like, "Hey man, let's rush up there with the frogs." Like, "Nah man, don't go up there, man. I've seen a couple of them get ate. So let's just hang around the other tadpoles with tails, and let's not go over there with the ones with the arms yet, because they can pull themselves up in certain places because there's predators that chase them that don't chase us here. So let's deal with what we got while we got our little legs, and then when we get our arms, we can do more, and then finally we can jump up out of here with our frog legs and still be able to come back whenever we want." So that's how I looked at it. Everything, like, you'll never see a 8th grade quarterback playing in NFL. It's physically not conducive for him to do that because he can't survive the punishment like the older quarterbacks can. So yeah, there's a lot of glory up there, man. I'm in the 8th grade. I'm gonna skip high school. I'm gonna skip college. I'm gonna go try out for the Falcons right now and make the team and get paralyzed because you can't take the punishment that those older, more developed quarterbacks can take and even avoid. So you have to give yourself time to develop. And like Brother Zach just said, because that's why that hit me this past week, thinking about my birthday. What am I going to change different? But just being able to enjoy the phases of your life and conquer the challenges at that phase. And then by the time you get, you know, further phases down, you complete it, you get it. Oh, that's why that kept happening to me. Okay, I'm not going to do that no more. I'm going to do something different. Oh, great. I remember when I used to do that. That's the type, you'll turn into that type of person, as opposed to, man, I keep going through this, I keep struggling, I keep yada yada yada, don't nothing go right. All these men lie, these women, they want too much, yada yada yada. You want to go to the phase, oh yeah, I remember when I was there. I said I just want to attract a female version of myself and then see what it was. And that eliminated all of that, because whatever she do is a reflection of what I do. So now you start to meet people different, and that's not a challenge anymore. Like, yeah, I remember, yeah, man, I couldn't stand it. When you know, you're like, okay, I know I can speak from experience because I'm out of that, not because I'm still in it. I'm out of it. Those problems don't apply to me no more. So like that's what helped me get through those, you know, that phase of feeling I should be further along than what I am. Like I have my tadpole, I still have a tail, so I got to stay in water before I can go in the land.
You know, and just what he just said, man. That was even one of the show titles, "Praise as a War Tactic." Man, that's exactly how I look. Is this you enjoy every step of the process, man. You enjoy those times where you like, man, I don't know, I'm not really interested in reading, but I'm gonna do a little bit anyway. I'm not interested in getting this done, but I'm gonna just do a little bit anyway. And you just start to enjoy even your struggles. There's beauty in the struggle. There's real beauty in the struggle if you just find it and look for it. And if you focus on what you want to focus on, because again, it's just like your perception is not reality. Perception is a situation. And now you're in this situation, you can either use the tools that you have gained up until this point to get out of it, so you can start to say, man, hold up, man, I'm in a hole here. But you know what? I've been doing some push-ups, and I've been doing my calisthenics, and I've been doing some sit-ups, and I've been doing my air squats, and I've been doing all of this. Watch me get up out of here. And it's a beautiful, I might try to pull myself up, and I might slip the first time. I might not get my footing right the second time. You know, but guess what? Every time I'm learning. The first, the second, the third time, I may fail. But guess what? The fourth time, that might be the time when I get up out of here. So I don't care how many times it's going to take me to get out of here. It's just now a time to show off now the energy and the effort that I put in to help me get to this place that I got. But again, I'm not satisfied with it either, though. You can celebrate it because that goes back to even our summer solstice, where you go out, you show what you've done, but then you go right back to doing that work. But you just keep going, man, and you enjoy every step of the way, man, because it's not, again, the life is not about the destination. It's about the journey. It's about right here being in the thick of it. And there's an old saying that goes, man, you can't see the forest through the trees. And when you're in it, sometimes it's hard to see it. But this is why you're part of a community that you now lean on and say, hold up, man, man, I ain't got it today, man. And you can call us like when me and Onwar chop it up. Well, man, I ain't got, oh, man, hold on, man, I got you. Don't worry, lean on it. Like that song, we all need somebody to lean on. That's what a community is all about. And then you enjoy everybody, what they bring to that community. We help you, I help, you going to help me, and we going to all get this done together. But again, once you start putting in that work, you're going to start to know the season 2 of who's a part of your community. And then once you start to do that, then you can start to manifest greatness, man. Somebody just came in playing the tambourine. There we go. There we go.
Who was that?
Well, on that note, let me do some housekeeping.
It's my younger one's apologies. My younger one.
Okay. Like, who was that?
Hey, would you all mind if I jumped in for a moment? Is it okay?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Peace to the chief.
Peace, everyone. Peace, everyone. Yeah. You know, kind of following the line of communication that you all were speaking about, there's a piece that I wanted to just share with, you know, and I guess it's really because Sister Michelle kind of brought us into a certain way, a good way. And I suspect there's a lot of people who feel similar to her in terms of just kind of, you know, feeling that measure of, well, maybe to some degree that measure of not measuring up, you know, at times, and not meeting your own goals and your own vision that you may have for yourself. And one of the important things to think about, you know, like someone mentioned, I think it was Zach or Charles, but mentioned in terms of the timing of the segments. And sometimes, a lot of times when there are certain things that I may speak about, it seems like it fits precisely into where a person is at that time in their lives. And of course that, you know, it's all intentional, but like I spoke about, you know, in some segment a long time ago, I don't know, but I spoke about the horoscope or the horoscope, and how that sun rises and falls, and it rises and falls, and it creates different seasons and dispensations in our own lives. So at certain times we feel very motivated to move forward. And at other times we, you know, our mojo isn't working. You know, we may have a little trouble. Somebody has their speakers on. Man, I don't want to hear my voice.
This is Georgina.
Oh, okay. Could you turn your speakers down, Georgina? Your computer speakers, or whatever. Okay, it's okay. It's cool. So what I was saying is that that idea of like, there's a time for movement, there's a season for it, and then there's a season where you gotta hold still, but the constant is your soul's journey. That's the part that you anchor in, because when you look at the Libraic aspect, you know, as we were kind of speaking about this month, you know, and I shared with you that it's connected to the constellation of well, originally it was called Scorpius. I don't know if originally, but the Greeks called it Scorpius, right? So what Libra is the actual claws of Scorpio. Okay. And what you'll find with the claws of Scorpio, even when you look in the constellation, is that the right claw is always lower than the left claw. So in the same instance, when you're looking at that Libraic scale, a lot of times the right side, or pan as they call it, the right pan is lower than the left pan, right? So it gives you the notification right there that achieving balance is a lifelong journey. You know, you're usually leaning to one side or the other pretty much at all times. And when you're coming to that space of Libra, what you're doing, you're the hands now of Scorpio. And Scorpio really represents our repressed emotions. You know, Scorpio is a water energy, but it's a water energy where it's not really like the raging storm of water signs. It's more like the repressed, you know, storm, or the repressed cyclone of the water energies. So that's why a lot of times Scorpios are okay until you really upset them. Then once you upset them, they rip you to pieces. They sting you. They end you. They kill you. You know, because they had so much that they kept inside, that they kept to themselves, that they kept repressed. So the way they express that energy, when that time comes in your life, you express it through the doing. You see, and that's the hands of Libra. It's the owo, as we say in Yoruba. It's the hands. So it's what you're actually doing in the season, even if it's a small thing that begins to create a balance. But the doing comes from a sense of self-love. And this is really, really, really where I'm tapping into what Sister Michelle was speaking about. There's a lack of self-love. Remember that Libraic season, or that Libraic concept, is ruled by the planet Venus, right? And Venus is synonymous with Aphrodite, or which many people call Aphrodite. And that Venus, or that Aphrodite energy, was born out of Olokun's water. You know, so but she's not necessarily a sea deity. So what that essentially means is that she's born out of emotion. She's born out of repressed and dark energy. You know, it's because it's the Venus energy, or the Aphrodite energy, that pulls together dark energy, pulls together dark matter, just like Oshun. It doesn't pull together light. Oshun doesn't gather light and bring it together. Oshun gathers darkness and brings it together. So gathers those emotions and those feelings of like, I'm not good enough. And even though I may be doing these affirmations, after I do the affirmation, I'm still like, but it's not going to work for me because I haven't been consistent, or I haven't been loyal, or I lied about something, or I stole something, or I'm just lazy. I didn't do anything today. You know, it's those darker feelings that are pulled together and expressed through the hands of Libra, or through the claws of Scorpio. So, you know, to understand, it's like, when you're coming forth in that Libra season, you know, you're coming forth as a person that is producing things that may not have been on your timeline. So like you were speaking earlier about our new spiritual training. Maybe you set a timeline, man, okay, by November, I'm going to be done. But when you come into that Libraic season, you're almost like regurgitating or vomiting up things that may have been repressed down in you from 6 or 7 years ago, but need to come out and be expressed as a mission of balance. You see, and that's the sincere aspect of Venus, or Aphrodite, or Libra, because what it does is it pulls you and it connects you to your dark matter unconsciousness. You know, and you guys earlier, of course, we're talking about sex. So the balance in between with that, how you get that to really activate, is there's a balance between your erotic self, and your erotic self. What it does is it pulls to beauty. It pulls to manifest your sexuality throughout your human nature, and it comes down from the heavens. Whereas your Venus aspect, or your Oshun, or your Aphrodite aspect, pulls from your dark matter from the water. So there's a meeting of what comes from heaven and what comes from the water when you come into that place of Libra. What comes from the water is the ugly, repressed ignorance of your unconsciousness. Like, I'm not good enough. I ain't shit. You know, I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. My stomach's too big. You know, whatever it is, these are the reasons why I can't make anything happen. I don't have any money. All those things that are lies to your true divine nature. And then they meet up with the part that comes up top. Now, all this is just Jesus and the devil getting together. That's all. That's why you have the bright and morning star, and then you have Lucifer, the star of the morning. They're the same thing, but they're just coming together. So at certain times of the day, you can see the planet Venus, and you can see the sun in the sky at the same time, right? That's just them two coming together. That's just dark matter love and divine heavenly love coming together to form one expression, right? And of course, that expression we know is God, because God is just the devil and Jesus together, you know. So not to get off on it, but I'm just saying, like, for a lot of you who are struggling with that, you got to let those repressed emotions in this season take over what even your timeline is. Even if you're saying, I've been working on this, working on that, and I'm trying to take steps to do this, to that, that's cool. But when Libra comes forth, it's whatever's in you. A good example, Brother Dietrich is on the line. I think he's still on the line. But Brother Dietrich, you guys have been listening to him for a while, and you all know what I'm hearing. We all hearing the same thing. He's all over the place. Every time he calls in, he's got a new invention. All right. He's like Inspector Gadget. You know, I got an idea. We need to be doing this down in Atlanta. And we need to be doing this in Tennessee. We need to be doing that. We need to be doing that. We need to be doing that. He's all over the place. But see, that's that Libraic aspect of him where he's constantly pulling from his dark matter. Constantly. So it seems very random. And it might even be random to him. But a lot of his genius and his things are coming from the deep, dark places of his repression. So that's where a lot of you have to learn in this season to let it just spill out, let it vomit itself out through your dark emotions. That's the energy of Libra. That's how balance is discovered in the time of Libra. All right. So I just wanted to say that.
You can hit the gong again.
Yeah, please. Is it over?
I thought I was trying to be.
I was about to say all that, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're in sync. Synchronicity.
Is that kind of like because I was looking into dialectic behavioral therapy, and it was like the DI, and I'm looking at the DI, and it looks like almost like a 0 and a 1 together. And then I was just looking at DIs in all different, where it's like dive, where you have you diving in the water, so you have the air and the water, or dichotomy, where it's always putting something against the other. Is that where that 0 and 1 come together, but then the I, which is not connected, which kind of signifies you doing your own work and making that come together to make it all make sense, to give that D a direction?
Yeah, in a sense, because when you're dealing with dialectical behavior therapy, it's really finding out different ways that the cognitive mind works together. So a lot of times when we look at cognitive thought, we don't look at all of the different constituents that go into comprising one thought. That's what I spoke about in I don't know, one of them books, man. I think it's The Compass. So I don't know, one of them. One of them books I wrote. So I might as well not even reference it, because now I sound ignorant. But either way, what it is you're looking at the balancing functions, like I spoke about in one of those texts, where a lot of times when we're speaking about cognitive thought, we lean very heavily on left and right brain hemisphere thinking, which is basically linear and abstract thinking. But one of the huge parts that we always leave out is the subconscious, which is really determines the motivation and the objective of the left and right brain hemispheres. Like your logic is always predicated upon what your subconscious mind is telling you to do. So if your subconscious mind is telling you to be afraid, you're going to logically confirm fear in your moments. So it's like when you're able to, you pull everything together through your pineal or through your first eye consciousness, which becomes the fourth member. You know, so it's like you got your left brain thinking, your right brain thinking, your subconscious thinking, and then the pineal looks at those three constituents and says, okay, now let's pull this together into something cognitive, right? Now, of course, you know, when you're looking at DBT, you know, or even CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, when you're looking at either one, they're not going to take, of course, the pineal into account. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to have that kind of conversation with you. You know what I'm saying? But that's what goes back to what we were speaking about earlier in the chat. Like somebody had asked something about common sense. And I think asked Brother Charles, and he had shared, like, you know, that's going to be predicated upon the dominant society that you're in. So the dominant society that you're in tells you that there's four components of that form of therapy, which they tell you is you know, usually, what is it, the individual, the group, I think group counseling, and then like a measure of coaching goes into that. And then there's like what we think, our mind, what we observe, what we participate in, and what we have the ability to non-judgmentally describe, or, you know, to depict. But if you're dealing with a deeper level of spirituality, you know, wait a minute, what about the ancestors' perspective? You know, what about my different spiritual faculties perspective? So you start to understand your common sense is based upon how many senses that you're working with. And for some, they might just be working with 3, you know, or some there's 5 senses. And then you might be deep into your spirituality where it's like, well, man, every deity that I know of is a different sense. So I might be working with 30 senses. So is common sense based off of 30 senses? No, not really. Common sense is usually based off of 1. You know, what were you told? Listening. What were you told to do? What does everybody else say? Have you ever heard anything so preposterous? You know, so it's what we hear becomes the common thing, and that's what we go upon. Not necessarily what we hear and what we see, not necessarily what we hear, see, and think, or what we hear, see, and feel. You know, so theoretically, common sense can be developed and spread through a cell phone, through a smartphone. You know, we all watch the same video, it becomes common sense, but we didn't even touch the thing. You know, like we can all say a lion's teeth are sharp, but how many of you have ever touched a lion's tooth? But it's just a commonly known fact that lion's teeth are sharp. But maybe they're not sharp. Maybe it's just that his jaw is so muscular, or her jaw is so muscular, it just rips through anything anyway. Maybe it ain't that sharp. But, you know, I'm just giving an example. So, yeah. You know, with that form of therapy, there always is like a dualistic aspect, but there's like really mainly like 4 major components. But again, like I said, you can't always go by that if you're dealing with a deeper level of awareness and spirituality. It's going to make you more aware of all the different other components that go into therapeutic work.
And there wouldn't be any other way to get around putting those or coming into a Libraic form without having a community.
Can you come into a Libraic form? Yeah, well, always remember your internal system is your first community. So you always have a community, you know, and then you have your egbe, you know, you have your egun, you have your guardians that are around you. You know, when you think about the infinity of observation, or the infinity of description, right? Sometimes we'll look at our thoughts and we'll observe thought, and we'll say, man, my brain is really doing some interesting things today. But then we have to sometimes think about, well, if I'm able to observe my thought and have a comment about it, then that means something must be observing what is observing my thought. So now we already have 3 tiers or 3 layers of community already. And then obviously, I'm not going to do this, but obviously we could just keep going because something is observing that. And then something else is observing that and observing that and observing that. And it goes off into infinitum. So you start to realize that your community is not just based upon what somebody tells you and describes as this is the community. Like, for instance, when we talk about chakras, we say the root chakra is red, this one's yellow, that one's orange, but that's not actually true. They don't necessarily, I mean, the truth is, we call them chakras and we put all this divine meaning to them, but all we're talking about is the endocrine system. So the truth is, sometimes what we label and name things is not as profound as we call it. We call it that for symbolism, but in the same turn, sometimes there's a lot more things working inside of us and around us and with us and because of us than we give ourselves credit for. You know, for instance, there's bacteria that lives in us. You know, if you spit on the ground and your spit interacts with the soil on the ground, you're now creating a new kind of life, a new kind of bacteria, and really a new community that you're karmically responsible for. No different than when you take it. I know one of y'all was quoting the Bible earlier. Man, y'all was starting to preach and stuff, getting real crazy up in here. But I think it was you, Zach. Yeah, yeah, TD Zach. So, you know,
I said you got the rise up.
Yeah, that's right. Help Gilligan get off the island. So, you know,
all right, pass the plate.
Right, exactly. So, you know, with that aspect, it's like there's even a scripture where it talks about when a man spilled his seed on the ground, right? And a lot of people use that as a way to admonish people who masturbate. And they say, well, the Bible says you shouldn't spill your seed on the ground, you know, but it wasn't talking about masturbation. The problem was that his brother had died, had gotten killed. So he, you know, by that, he break law back then. He was supposed to marry his brother's wife and take her on and procreate with her. But what happened when he went to go lay down with her, which was the marriage, instead of ejaculating inside of her, he pulled out. And it was like, no, you spilled your seed on the earth. You were supposed to put it inside of her, but you didn't want to. So that's really what that meant. But the point I'm saying, that was kind of a side note, was that even when you do something like that, you're creating a new community. There's bacteria that lives inside of that sperm, you know, and whether you make a child or not, or whether you put it into the earth, you're still continuing the life force forward. You're karmically responsible for that. So there's so many different ways that we commune with nature and we commune with the cosmos, where we create community that a lot of times we don't count it. And as a result, because we don't count it, when we start feeling all this garbage in our lives, we get real confused as to where it's coming from. But it's because we haven't looked at all the different communities that we've created along the way. You know, looked at the times when, you know, I'm sure all of you listening can think about a time when you were a child, an adult, and an adult or another person, just another individual that said something real foul to you. Or even as an adult, somebody saying something real foul to your child or your little brother or your little sister. I bet you it still sits with you today. You know, maybe you were out somewhere at an event and you were there with your little sister and she was acting real goofy, and one of your friends says something real cruel about her, you know, and maybe it made your little sister cry, and, you know, and that thought is still in your mind to this day. Well, that thought creates its own dimension. It creates its own community. It creates its own world, its own life, you know, and you have to be responsible for either closing that community down, letting it run its course and then go away, or you might continue to feed it through your own embarrassment or your own anger and your own hurt. So a lot of times, you know, we are pushing and putting and projecting a lot of communal energies out into the world, and we don't realize that our essence continues forward and it extends forward and it manifests itself into further human nature. You know, so our inner processes are directly tied to our greater human consciousness, which now creates a human community just inside of our own human bodies.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I know you were, man. I was basically reading your mind, brother. I'm feeding off your energy, brother. You know, I'm feeding off your energy, man. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
Right.
May I say something?
Sure thing, Georgina.
Well, I think that I feel like you picked up on my energy being on the call, and just want to give thanks for allowing me to be here with you all. Um, Peace to everybody. It's been a long time. Today's my born day, and so of course I've been.
Oh, that's why you called in to try to get
checking
some
you guys
praise.
out.
Happy birthday, Georgina.
No, I'm trying to find some balance with. No, I really want to try to find some balance with myself because I told myself, honestly, I want to kind of fast some steeping today as a gift to myself. And then I thought that's not going to work. I have so many outside influences reaching out and wanting to, like right now I'm sitting in front of the Denny's waiting, my friends are waiting my friend is waiting for me. She called me and said, I'm right by your house and come on, take you out for breakfast. And I'm just like, you want some water? Like some Fiji water? Yeah, I can bring you some.
Your friend just woke up?
I don't want anything to eat from in there. But I don't really, my whole thing is, my balance thing is I'm not doing it. It's like I needed to hear what you said. Because it just was for me. And it always is. And I'm always all over the place too, like Brother Diedrich. And we're both Libras. Happy birthday, born day to you. But I always get flustered and nervous and sweaty and crazy when I get on the line. But really my main thing is that I just always want to give thanks and let you know that I'm here still and that I'm still learning. And I really appreciate everything that you do and give me. And I do my best to share it and apply it. And I can feel myself getting better. It's just I thought to call in and say, yes, I need some help with some balance because I just do. And then I feel like, well, I wanted to say something originally right away. Then I said, no, I got to find the balance and listen out first and then, come later and see what, obviously, I'm here to gain something. And then I feel terrible. Like, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, I don't want to just be here to take. I want to be able to give too. And I just love you guys.
Sister.
I just really do.
I feel the same way, sister. I feel the same exact way. But you know something? A part of it is that gratitude that we have to express to Chief and to the community. And also, and what Chief just mentioned is also, we have to give ourselves that gratitude too. The self-love,
yes,
doing the work,
and
putting yourself first. And that means, confronting your inner demons, confronting your haunted house, your inner haunted house, opening up those closets, getting those skeletons out.
And him saying, like, I feel those words, 1,000 pardons, feeling those words. I hear what you're saying because I'm feeling those words where he's saying, I put myself down, I put myself up. I'm all over the place. I'm back and forth. And what I just really need to do or want to do and feel compelled to do is I got a birthday card and I got some money in it and I don't want to use it but to give it to Chief and say, hey, here, this is what I want you to have. I don't even need anything back from you. This is just from everything you've given me thus far.
Listen, let me tell you something, Georgina. I'm going to make something real clear to you. You can't always see spots on you that other people can see. Now, if other people are as observant as I am, then they're all going to notice a couple of things that I'm noticing. You are not saying nearly as much as you were before.
Right on.
You hear it.
Right on.
Your voice is.
I was going to mention it.
Yep, you can hear it. Your voice is way clearer than it used to be. You used to call in and I That's how you used to sound before. Now you sound like a big grown, big breasted, sexy woman. I'm joking, but I don't know what she looks like, so I'm just.
And that was one of the reasons why I called as well, because I said, you know what? I know when Anwar said to me, brother, thank you so much, because it goes in my head, it plays in my head like you're saying about somebody, you know, always thinking of something, that this is in a positive way. Brother Anwar said, I'll guarantee you a year from now, you will come back and you will talk different. And then that was, I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. It's been 9 months since, or somewhere around there, because it was the beginning of the year, where I was like, I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to take. I want to just, you know, weigh the energy, and because I used to suck up the energy and be all over. And so I wanted to be able to try it for myself. I saw a comment in the chat room saying, you know, asking a question about something being this way or do something this way, and she responded with, did you try it? Have you tried it? And I said, you know, I got to try this to see, can I do this, and let you know that I've been here and I'm going to stay, and I'm just so thankful.
Well, just keep it up. You know, even if you don't stay around, it doesn't matter, as long as, you know, because, and what I mean by not saying that you don't matter, but you might need something else at some point. The only thing that matters is that you just meet us there. You know what I mean? I don't care if you meet me on the Anu ship, or you meet me on the Banu ship. I don't know, somebody might start something else next to, you know, Coscreen always starting some new stuff. You know what I'm saying? But you might meet us on another. Just get there. You know, this is a love thing, and what we stress, what I stress, and I'm sure everybody else, it's more about the relationship than it is about the membership. You know what I mean? You don't hear me stress anything about any deep membership thing or anything like that. You know, the main reason why we have even ministry membership is just so that we know what information to send to who and what people may not be interested. So that way we're not wasting newsletters and stuff like that. But just get there. And obviously you're on the way. And the difference that I'm hearing in you is the same difference I heard in Gloria. Gloria C is in the chat room right now. Y'all remember how she used to sound when she first used to start calling in? You know, I used to have to rip into her, boy. You know, she was horrible. You know what I mean? Rude, wouldn't say hi, nothing. Yeah, Chief, so this is what I want to know this week. You know, and then she had that experience where a butterfly landed up her nose or something like that. I don't know. You know, and then her whole vibration changed. She hit her turning point. You see, and I could go right through the room. Sister Michelle, who's on the line, is no different. When she first started calling in, it was just chaos. You could hear the chaos in the background of her home. You could hear the chaos, and she used to do a lot of the ums and the rambling and all that stuff, because she had so much that she just had to purge out of her system before she could stand on her feet and say, you know, now I'm getting into some woman shit. I'm getting into my womanness, you know. And I could go right on down the list. Brother Anwar called in crazy the first time, hyper arrogant. Dietrich, hyper arrogant. You know, and these brothers too, they came to control those animal aspects of themselves and get in control of certain things. And yeah, I'm calling people out, you know, but I can call you out now because there's been an extreme amount of growth. And if you guys go back and hear those listen to those earlier shows with Dietrich or with Anwar, and listen to them now, it doesn't even sound like the same people. You know, and it's not that they matured in age that, you know, in a year, but it's just that they kept applying the tools. Their prime example, Dietrich joined like 7 different elays. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's a rabbi, actually. You know, so he's all over. But he went in full force. You know, so it's the same thing with you, sis. We hear the growth. So just know that you're not alone and you're not forgotten, even if you spend time away. I definitely don't forget you. I know that's why I can tell you the difference, and we're proud of you. And let me tell you something. You coming on and sharing and speaking, you didn't even have to say anything deep. Just us hearing you. You know how many people are listening right now like, damn. And they're encouraged just hearing your voice. And hearing the solidification and the concreteness and the definition that's starting to build up in you. There are women listening right now. I could probably tell you the ones, some who I know. Raw Honey Jaha is one of them. I know Gina Lacey is one of them. You know, and I'm calling people out. I know Sister Alicia is one of them, because these are all women right now who are trying to figure out how to let their titties hang. You see, you now getting that. You're gonna let your titties hang today. You know, you're gonna let that womanhood come out. Yeah, it's your birthday, so I can talk to you like grown folk. You know, so that's what I'm saying. You grown now. So what I'm saying is that you are an encouragement just for showing up. Just for showing up, you are an encouragement. I'm telling you, you ain't got to get on this phone and say anything deep. The fact is, you still here. You're still here. It's just like I had told one of the sisters who's in, she's in the chat room on the line, in the chat room right now, I'm gonna say. One time somebody was popping SHIT about her home. And I said, you know, your response is not that you got to say anything about your home. Your response is this: I still got this raggedy mother effer. People are losing their homes left and right. Yeah, we may have some old raggedy ass furniture and you know, we might have ripped up screens in the window, but I still got this mother effer. The bank ain't came and took it. Okay, so it's the same thing with you. You're on a journey, sister, and it may not always look the way you want it to look, but goddamn it, you still on it. You know, you may be limping and your bunions may be acting up and you walking the road and your hair is all messed up and what, but you still on it. And a lot of people, they get off after 2 months. Or the first time they get on the phone with me and I start talking that gutter stuff, I'm out of here. You're still on it. So no matter how it looks or whatever, we see you're still on it. And that is something to celebrate. That's something to celebrate. You know, you go back up in that Denny's and you rip that bra off.
With chocolate and strawberries.
Yeah, have you some ice cream.
No.
Yeah, mix it up with some Hennessy. Go have you a Hennessy shake.
I don't. But just to be able to, you know that receive something that someone wants to do for me for today, and just to show appreciation of all the stuff that I do, and it's rewarding to just be here and know that someone, that they care. So I I won't eat anything, but I'll come meet you there. So, but
why you ain't gonna eat
I
nothing?
may eat something.
Wait, why you not gonna eat anything?
I don't know, because
Denny's is racist.
I don't know what to eat from in there. I was thinking maybe I would eat something like a pancake. I don't know.
Oh, stop trying to be cute. Will you just stop trying to be cute?
I don't want to eat it.
Who you trying to impress?
Triple sack. Make sure you put the whipped cream on it.
Yeah, who you go in there and eat
some fruits and berries.
Listen, let me tell you something. Let me tell you. All right, let's get over all that little cute stuff. Let me tell you something, man.
All right.
First of all, the economy's getting ready to collapse in this country completely. I mean, we already know Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. So the money ain't worth nothing anyway. But this joint is completely getting ready to go under. Then we got Planet Nibiru that's getting ready to smash dab into the middle of the goddamn earth. Okay? So you can go get you some ice cream today. Okay? You can get some ice cream before the apocalypse hits. Because once the apocalypse hits, we're not going to have no electricity. So you ain't going to have no ice cream for a long time. So go out and enjoy today like it's your first day.
I said, you know what, I think maybe just because it's an offering, then I should have go ahead and accept, because that's when I do my that is when it's offered, then I'm like, okay, I'll accept that.
You got to stimulate the process of give and receive. And you can't always be on the receiving end. You can't always be on the giving end. But at the end of the day, like I said, go and have some fun today. You remember the first time when you went to school or to the park? You probably don't remember, but the first time you let a child go out and play in the park, they lose their freaking mind. That's why they got to fence them in. That's why parks always got fences, because children be like animals. They keep running You know, they running to the next county. You know, so you got to corral them in. That's why most parks, children parks, only got one entrance, one way in, one way out. It's like Thunderdome from Mad Max. You know, so what I'm saying is that you got to live today like it's your first day. Go out there and run in the field. If you want to go have some ice and go order something, you know what? Order yourself some bacon.
No.
Get yourself some pork. All praise is due.
Oh no. Oh no.
No, but you get what I'm saying.
Cake. And ice cream. I'm gonna have cake and ice cream.
Twist around some lines today. Well, just twist some lines today.
You're right though. You're right though. And I thank you. Appreciate that because I think I needed authorization or approval or whatever you call it.
Yeah, you got your stamp from me, man. Go wild out.
That.
You're welcome. Go wild out. Go to a strip club and smack a girl on her ass. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna let you take it on from here, man. Y'all got this. Yeah. Go live. You deserve it.
Go with it.
Yeah. You deserve it. Oh.
Hey, you just be sure to invite me.
Go sleep with somebody's husband today. You know what I mean? Take it there. Take it there. You know, you guys got to be so afraid of blurring them lines, man. And the whole job of a woman is to break and bend rules. Y'all so scared and timid. You know, that's your job, is to take your water and seep over the line. And make the men have to enhance their rule, their protocol game. You know? So enjoy yourself. I know I'm being extra, but you know, I just want you to know that we're happy for you, just like I'm happy for all the other brothers and sisters who have made leaps and bounds, and I'm shouting y'all out like that, not to embarrass you, but really to praise you, because like I say, we got to praise each other first. It has to happen internally first. I don't give a damn about what award your town gives you or what award your state gives you. It's about what we say about each other, because who you let reward or punish you is who you let define you. And your community is supposed to define your character, not aliens. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
Mhm. All right, I'm gonna let y'all get to it. Sound like somebody putting some yams in the
so
oven.
Let me do some So let me do some housekeeping real quick. For spiritual classes, sedulahouse.com. Webinars, any spiritual phase 1 training is up there for you. For our media source, Enlightenment and Transformation, you can get connected directly into all of our social media. For readings and spiritual readings, askosiris.com. For monthly services, life.com. And there's another site that's so people know about it yet. And if you've been paying attention to the slideshow that's going on YouTube, it's called theorisha.com. Orisha spelled ORISHA.com. You guys
Is it possible for me to be able to I have to do this on the line, but I don't have a phone number. I'm not really that computer literate. I said I was going to put on the chat room, like, for my birthday, can somebody please show me how to put my picture on my thing, because I'm supposed to have been through that. I know I'm slow. I know I'm even being needy right now. But I want to be able to just go ahead and...
Load the scholar will help you.
Can I say this to you, Chief Yuya? I'm sending you money, Western Union. Can I just say that to you over the phone right now? Or can you call my phone number?
Exactly. Okay.
Call my phone number. So I don't know how to... I'm just sending it in your name, and then I'll do a test question or something, and you'll know the answer to it.
Okay.
Gosh, now everyone knows, and they could be coming and picking up.
Yeah, it's choosing season. But yeah,
I don't know. Can you keep my phone number and then contact me?
Okay, I'll get in touch with you. How about I'll just get in touch with you after the show? I'll find you somewhere.
Right on.
All right.
Right on. I know I sound needy, and I should be working to do better, and I do want to, and I will, and I know it.
Lo asked, "What do you need help with?" She needs help with putting her picture. Yeah, see, he's trying to spread his genetic information around the world. But
strong mind, strong body, man. Something to say about that, brother Lo.
Yeah, Lo's making sure he's still
you
present.
Might need to have that conversation, brother.
But yeah, she needs to put her picture up on something on the site. So Lo help you with that. He's real helpful. You know, he don't help us brothers with nothing. But he's like a pimp named Slipback. He got nothing for the homies. But he'll help you.
I'm not certain, but it says on my thing on the chat, it says young but fly, but then it says young but fly, but then it says IFY. I don't know why that's there, but my email is youngbutfly@gmail.com.
Lo got you. Look, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I thought it was Young Butterfly. I thought that's what you were saying.
No, it says it's Young Butterfly. My son used to be in I used to manage his group. He was a hip hop.
Well, now that you had another ring around that trunk, you gonna take that Young off or what? Or we still going with that Young?
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I figured I probably got to come up with a new email address, I guess.
Old but fly. Because you done seen a lot of moons. I don't know how old you are, but I know you done seen a lot of moons. You know what I mean? A lot of rings around that tree trunk. I'm messing with you. Yeah, well, Lo will help you. Lo is he's highly sexual. All right, so I'm gonna go on mute and I'm gonna let y'all take it from here.
Cool. All right, so we're about 35 minutes over, man. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add? Any parting words before we go ahead and close out?
Let me just say this. The journey could be easy and difficult at times, but the celebration of the whole process is what makes you feel alive. Period.
Okay.
Bro.
Yeah, I would just say, man, be in balance. Don't skip leg day. You gotta do both, man. You gotta do the upper body, lower body, upper chakras, lower chakras. Gotta do the spiritual work. Gotta do the physical work. Can't skip leg day.
While you're still inside and out.
Did you say endocrine?
Endocrine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, brother.
Endocrine. That was a big word. Yeah, that's a big word. I remembered it.
There you go. There you go. Sister Michelle, you got anything before we
Well, I just want to give thanks, and yeah, that balance is so key, and I love it how all the teachings always come together, and I'm just very grateful for everybody. Give thanks to everybody.
Cool. So, yeah, and I'm gonna just piggyback what Brother Anwar and everybody just said. Man, challenges are gonna come to everybody. You look at lions, everybody look at the king of the jungle. They still got to deal with flies on a day in and day out basis, constantly swatting things away. But you find yourself when you bring that inner balance and a peace in that community that you can find that you can vibe with and just kick ideas off of each other and grow in harmony and that balance you find. So, and who better to take on the challenges that you have other than you, right? So stand up on your own too. We'll be back again. What you got, brother?
One more thing, man. One more thing. I developed a forum on seduluhouse.com, and I meant to tell you about this earlier. For all the students in Spiritual Training 1, I've created a forum on there. So if you have questions or insights in regards to the training courses, please let's communicate through the Sedulu House site. Let's crack the womb of that site open. You know, Chief has done a lot of work to get that site. A chief in the community has done a lot of work to get that site up and flowing, and we're going to now need the participation in hand. So that forum is up there. There's a topic for each module. So, you know, try to stick with the module that you're at and ask the questions inside of them. If you didn't get an invite, you can also go to groups, and you should see that. It should be the first one up there. Anti-spiritual training phase 1, and just click on the group, put yourself inside the group, and then you also got to subscribe to the forum to make sure you receive email comments.
There it is. So we'll be back. 7 days, a new day, a new topic, a new nation. We out.
Peace.
Peace.